Hi, everyone, and welcome. I see everybody is starting to connect and join. Welcome. I'll just give it a few more seconds for everybody to manage to do the various connection things. All right, thanks, everybody. Welcome. Over to you, Rebone.
Good morning, Lily, and good morning to everyone who's joined this meeting. It happens, I think at the right time, because I don't know if people have been following the latest remarks by Ngweze Mchunu from KwaZulu-Natal. Over the weekend, there was a gay couple getting married in Gauteng, I think within Val. And interesting enough, they were wearing their traditional regalia, and this guy made some very homophobic statements, about gay people or the LGBTI community should not be wearing cultural clothes and so forth, and this then makes us to question that in terms of knowing that we have this progressive, constitution, but do people respect the rights of others? Because at the end of the day, we are Africans or we come from different traditional backgrounds, and families do support, their kids in terms of their sexuality and so forth, And I've seen a lot of people have written to the Human Rights Commission around his remark that he made. So this dialogue happens at a very important time, and this dialogue will provide a space for constructive engagement to discuss how the constitutional rights, and especially the rights and safety of the LGBTI community. And I think that also while we discuss these things around the LGBTI community, we should also look at also the issue of tradition and culture, because that sometimes is used against the LGBTI community. But while you have the constitution that protects people in South Africa from all the marginalized groups, I will end there, and I look forward to the inputs by the speakers. Thank you, Lily.
Thank you so much for that, Rebone. So yeah, we'd like to welcome everybody on behalf of SALO, the Southern African Liaison Office, to this really important dialogue. My name is Lily Minoyem. Myself and my colleague Rebone Tao are going to be co-chairing this dialogue. Um, and we're going to spend the first hour of the discussion hearing from our various really incredible panelists. And then the second hour, we're going to be opening up the discussion for everybody who's attending to provide some input. And just to let everybody know that the meeting is being recorded and it's being live streamed on Facebook, as it's a public dialogue. And then afterwards, we will upload the recording onto our SALO YouTube channel. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker now, who is Reverend Elder Nokuthula Dladla. She serves as the regional coordinator for the Global Interfaith Network on the Religious Dialogue Partner Program. She's a dynamic leader, passionate advocate, and a deeply grounded spiritual guide. She brings decades of experience in faith-based activism and inclusive ministry. She was ordained in 1998 within the Metropolitan Community Churches, MCC, and she became the pastor of the Hope and Unity MCC Church, and has since dedicated her life to creating safe, affirming spaces for the LGBTQI plus community within faith contexts. In 2023, she was honored with a Rainbow Star Award by the South African Queer Movement Organization, recognizing her long-standing commitment. She's also worked as a part-time presenter on Mzansi Queer radio station on Inclusive Spiritual Insights, a Sunday morning show. She was appointed to the Council of Elders and Bishops in the Universal Fellowship of the Metropolitan Community Churches, and she became the first elder from Africa to serve in this esteemed position of global spiritual leadership. So thank you so much, and over to you, Reverend. I also have attended some of her church services many years ago, and it was really an incredible experience. So I'm very excited to have her here on our panel. Thank you, and over to you, Reverend. Oh, sorry, you must unmute. Maybe I need to allow that setting with tech.
Thank,
Thank you.
thank you very much, Lily, and SALO community. And I am grateful for having to be here on this important space that has been created for all of us. I want to also thank everyone, participants and partners. It is an honor to share in this dialogue alongside activists, faith-based organizations, and community leaders. We are all deeply caring about the safety and dignity of our people, LGBTIQ plus person in South Africa. So I want to start by saying that, South Africa has a very unique constitution. It's rightly celebrated to have one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. And our laws affirms the equality and the rights of LGBTIQ plus people and everyone. But these things are just on paper. The right to safety, dignity, and non-discrimination is clear and guaranteed within our constitution. But the truth is that the lives and the reality of many LGBTIQ plus people is totally different. Many LGBTI people continue to face prejudice, like we are seeing a lot of the media stuff that is coming out, discrimination, rejection, and even violence. We know of the hate crimes, especially on corrective rape and these things that we are seeing, that exclusion in families who cast their children, who still cast their children. We're seeing these things playing out in workplaces and schools where bullying and exclusions are still common. The law may protect us, but societal attitude often undermine these protections. And it is in the daily lives of people where we see it, in homes, in churches, in community, where the real risks of safety are really felt. As a religious leader, I want to speak to the power of faith and culture in shaping these attitudes. Too often, faith spaces have been used to justify stigma and discrimination, and it is sad. Phrases like "it's an African" we hear, or "is sinful" are still used as a preaching tool, not as words of life, but as a weapon of exclusion. And those words cut deeply to so many people. They fuel rejection, shame, and even silence. I believe I have witnessed, and I am living proof that it is possible that faith can also be used as a source of healing and liberation. At the Metropolitan Community Church, where I fellowship or where I serve and preach, and in many other inclusive spaces, we create these spaces where LGBTI people can pray, can love, can live openly as their full selves. These spaces remind us that we are not a mistake. We are part of God's creation, fearfully, wonderfully made. And these spaces reminds us that God loves us unconditionally. We don't need to change anything about ourselves. We can come as we are in the presence of God. So the same faith that has harmed us can also become a tool for inclusion, justice, and safety, but only if we are intentional about challenging harmful narrative and teaching affirming ones. And that is possible. The risk to safety are not abstract, but they are physical violence that many of us are experiencing, and assaults. There are emotional depression, trauma, and even suicide. We have witnessed, I have witnessed a lot of our people struggling because of all these negative messages that they have been hearing about themselves, about how God has not created them, and they need to change or be prayed for. And we are seeing a lot of these things coming out in our media spaces. We have seen a lot of people, they are struggling, losing their jobs, houses, or opportunities because of who they are. And they are spiritually being told that we do not belong to God's family. And it is said that it is happening in the country that has so much protection in the Constitution for all of us. When LGBTI people are excluded, the whole community suffers. We lose gifts, leadership, and creativity that could enrich us all. And that notion of that we are just here in this world to just add in, it is not truthful, because God created all of us in the image of God, and none of us have created anyone. And we are living here in this world for us to bring our gift and bring our talents, so that then our whole world can be enriched by all that we are bringing to the table. We are not just sexual beings that don't have these kinds of gifts that God has given us. So what can we do? I thought about first that we must deepen this collaboration. And as civil society, faith leaders, and even policymakers must work together to shift the mindset and protect lives. We must continue to create these spaces to engage, these public dialogues, so that we have to engage with each other. And the second thing that I want to say, we must hold faith community also accountable, not only to stop harmful teachings, but to actively create inclusive ones. Training and dialogues for religious leaders are very crucial. That is the work that Jean is doing within our own community, the program that I am leading, where we engaging in conversations around faith, gender, and sexuality. And third, we must invest in safe spaces and grassroots organizations where LGBTI people can find belonging, support, and empowerment. And finally, we must amplify our stories as LGBTI people. When LGBTI people share their realities, hearts are changed and attitude can be softened, because humanity shines through our own story. So as I close, family and friends, South Africa has a tool, a strong constitution, the constitution that is very vibrant. We have also a vibrant civil society and the resilience of LGBTI communities. We are so resilient. What we need to do now is to work together and build this courage and collaborate to bridge the gap between what is written in laws and what is lived realities that we are facing. And my prayers and my hope for today is that together we will transform attitude from exclusion to acceptance, from violence to safety, from silence to affirmation. May our collective work ensure that every LGBTIQ plus people not only survive, but thrive in dignity, in safety, and in love. And I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for that input. That's much appreciated. And a great way of getting our discussion on this started. So we're very grateful to have you here, and thank you for that input. I'd now like to introduce our next speaker. Sorry, let me just open the speaker bios here. So our next speaker is Ms. Nogutula Tulimdrawa, and she is she's the process coordinator at Inclusive and Affirming Ministries. I'm not sure if that's correct, but she's definitely representing IAM, Inclusive and Affirming Ministries in Western Cape. With a vision of addressing religious-based homophobia, she works at the intersections of gender, religion, and human rights by facilitating processes that are community-based. In partnership with civil society partners, she also coordinates events that promote awareness of diversity, embodied leadership, and address gender-based violence. And Tuli is a 2022 Outright Action International Religion Fellow, a seasoned and CETA accredited training facilitator with vast experience serving on local, provincial, and national forums, advocating for the rights of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex communities. With over 13 years of work experience, she's worked with a range of marginalized communities. And I will leave it at that and hand over to you, Tuli Mdrawa. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry, allow to unmute. There we go.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. And I was invited to speak on the societal attitudes and discrimination against LGBTQI+ persons in South Africa. Brand South Africa adopted a tagline, which was "Alive with Possibility," to capture the reimagining of a new South Africa. One characterized with a thriving economy, growth of investment within the formal and informal sectors of trade, but one where we are united in rebuilding a South Africa for all, woven together by the principle of Ubuntu. This is a full turnaround from a system of apartheid that intentionally degraded and eroded communities, identities, and stripped the dignity of all. Alive with Possibility ignites pride on how far we have come, changing exclusionary laws to ones that recognize, celebrate, and protect the most marginalized. Nearly 30 years since the adoption of the South African Constitution, our very panel today and those part of the webinar have witnessed the fruits of the dream of a free and equal South Africa. Programs such as the National Task Team within the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development continue to benchmark how the South African government commits itself to working towards an equal society. The program addressed a horrendous backlog of hate crime cases, with some dating as far back as 10 years within the justice system. They've played an integral role in the monitoring and sentencing of hate crime cases, and we've witnessed the development, training, and rollout of standard operating procedures within the South African police services in being capacitated to improve their responses towards the LGBTQI+ related cases. Research conducted by the other foundation, called Progressive Prudes, in a sample pool of 3,000 people, found that 2 in 4 South Africans would accept a gay child, although realistically 1 in 4 shared that they had a gay child or a relative. 51% believe that LGBTQI+ people should be left alone to enjoy all the rights as everyone, even though 72% believed same-sex relations were morally wrong. Here, we see the constant tango between recognizing LGBTQI+ individuals as such, allowing them to live freely, while trying to thrive in a society that holds differing beliefs when it comes to faith. In 2018, we witnessed the advocacy around amending the Civil Union Act of 2006, holding Home Affairs clerks to service delivery, as opposed to allowing them to use their faith as a reason to refuse services to the LGBTQI+ community. In one training with government stakeholders, I once said that as a queer person, I'm not asking you to believe in me. I'm not God or a Messiah. I am asking you to treat me with the same respect and dignity as any person living in South Africa. Societal attitudes towards LGBTQI+ persons in South Africa have gradually become more accepting, yet discrimination and violence persists, revealing a complex gap between constitutional protections and daily lived experiences. The acceptance may be attributed to the laws that have provided the framework of recognition and protection, but also the advocacy of civil society partners in enforcing accountability from government stakeholders, conducting intensive awareness campaigns, training and holding media houses accountable on using affirming language, and being visible in public dialogues, in political arenas, in academic arenas, in the economic and development arena, and being unapologetic and being visible, queer, and alive with possibility. We witnessed the Methodist Church taking a firm and visible positioning in Namibia by issuing a statement discouraging anti-LGBTQI+ marches and participation of its members during the case of the twins. We need more visible voices that will remind people that our faith, no matter which prophet you believe in, are rooted in treating those who look, speak, and are different to us with kindness, humility, and offering hospitality. Denominational churches that have branches in countries outside of South Africa have the responsibility to provide pastoral care to LGBTQI persons, their families, and the larger community that is rooted in upholding the dignity of all. South Africa stands out globally for enshrining protection against discrimination based on sexual orientation, as per our constitution, and we were the first country in the world to do so. Legislation supports equal rights with same-sex marriage and adoption as well. The progressiveness of these laws is evident in annual pride events and increased LGBTQI+ representation in pop culture. Despite the positive progress, there are some spaces that remain to be contested. One of them is the issue of officiating or blessing of same-sex marriages, and the other is about identity, as so we have seen this week. One lesson from the disruption caused by Ngizwe Mchunu this week was to show that there's a small group that believes that sexual minorities are undeserving of cultural identity. Being in a same-sex relationship does not change or make you less worthy of claiming your identity as an African of a particular tribe or to dress in your cultural clothing. Quoting King Misizulu, he once said, "Nibezwe kodwa ningabalaleli," translated to "hear them but don't listen to them." Despite legal safeguards, LGBTQI persons encounter prejudice, exclusion, and violence across communities, workplaces, and public services. There remains a significant divide between the constitutional ideals and social norms, with LGBTQI+ persons' identities often dismissed as unnatural or immoral, particularly within religious or traditional settings. Hate crimes that include assault, murder, or curative rape continue to target our communities, and survivors frequently hesitate to report incidences due to negative encounters with law enforcement. Increased visibility can bring both acceptance and enhanced risk. As discrimination and harassment remain prevalent, we see the rise of thugs who use the Grindr app to trap, kidnap, and extort gay men, while programs that provide asylum have reported a large number of heterosexual men who claim asylum under the banner of being gay, misusing systems in place that have been created to support and safeguard the safety and security of LGBTQI+ persons. Working within faith advocacy, I've seen the growth of LGBTQI+ persons claiming their spaces within faith spaces. We are part of community and we are part of church, so we must play a bigger role in upholding our faith that sees each neighbor as a creation of God. Research scholars such as Dr. Sizwe Samajobe Stole and PhD scholar Tracy Maswazi Gumede continue to capture the inclusive nature of faith spaces in churches such as Izayoni and African indigenous spaces, highlighting that our societies are open to worship and not reduce us to who we love and sleep with. I applaud the work of scholars rewriting narratives that have dominated about an Adam and Steve, but encourage people to stop limiting God, but celebrate his creativity that we see reflected in the diversity in nature, diversity in our communities, and diversity in our very beings. Economic marginalization remains widespread, with barriers in healthcare, employment, education, and social inclusion also affecting the well-being of LGBTQI+ people, especially those who are already economically disadvantaged. Bullying in schools, lack of service access, and underfunding of health programs for LGBTQI plus groups are ongoing challenges. To create the communities we want, we have to work together. This calls on us to dream together, to march together, to tweet together, to worship together. Support from advocacy organizations, community leaders, and inclusive policies are vital for this progress. Raising awareness and strengthening hate crime legislations are key strategies that we need to continue pursue. The recent passage of South Africa's Hate Crimes and Hate Speech Bill marks a step forward, and as activists, we must warn that the implementation must be robust to address daily realities that are faced by LGBTQI individuals. In closing, let's continue to be alive with possibility and remember that it's not DNA, it's RSA that unites us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very, very much. That's really a lovely input and much appreciated. And I think something for us to all really think about and discuss more in the discussion. So thank you. Thanks so much, Tulindra, for that. Let me introduce our next speaker. Let me allow unmuting options. So our next speaker is going to be a representative from the Al Ghurba Foundation, and they'll be speaking anonymously but representing the foundation. So I'd just like to say a little bit about the Al Ghurba Foundation. It's an inclusive mosque and human rights organization in Cape Town, and it was founded in September 2018 and spearheaded by the late martyr Imam Mushin Hendricks. And on the 15th of February 2025, Imam Mushin Hendricks was assassinated. Hendricks's work was not limited to South Africa. He demonstrated an unwavering commitment to LGBTQIA plus Muslims globally, and particularly in regions where their existence is criminalized. He was a friend to the oppressed everywhere and was thus deeply committed to the Palestinian cause as well. Musin taught us that religious rights and queer rights are fundamental human rights that can be embodied in tandem and deserving of respect and dignity. The Al Ghurba Foundation has worked to create safe spaces, such as in promoting an Islam that's all-inclusive and compassion-centered, and ensuring that the rights of all Muslims are respected and valued, regardless of who they love. It has worked to create safe spaces, such as an inclusive mosque, which provides counseling and allows queer Muslims to feel spiritually connected and accepted. And it has integrated leadership trainings for queer Muslims and religious leaders, imams, on the African continent to promote a message of compassion and inclusiveness for the LGBTQIA plus communities within these communities. So, and our speaker from the foundation has been involved in working with and supporting and being a member of the foundation for many years. And we're very grateful to have you on our platform bringing in this important voice. So over to you, our representative from Al Ghurba Foundation. Let me see if I've allowed unmuting. We can't hear you. See if you can try and speak, our representative from Al Ghurba. I can see that you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Let's give it a few more seconds. Okay, we might have to ask you to disconnect and reconnect. And then maybe we can have you as a following speaker. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce our next. You're speaking just a second. Okay, let's give it a few seconds.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Awesome.
I'm so sorry. I thought that this feature was able to connect out the headset, so I just had to run. So I am at work at the moment, and I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna have to leave. Some of us are working. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Can you still hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Molweni, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, respected religious leaders and comrades. Thank you so much for including the Al Ghurba Foundation and also for inviting me to speak today. I'm speaking as a rep of the Al Ghurba Foundation, also known as AGF. I must admit I was quite anxious to speak this morning because I'm not an academic or scholar. I'm just a long-time supporter of the human rights work of the late Imam Mohsin. I guess I was also a bit anxious because Imam was always the one who I could go to check in and support and encourage me when it came to taking the stage. He was always one to push us, these members, up onto the stage, you know. May his soul rest in peace. But with the help of good friends and comrades, I was able to come up with a couple of pointers which will guide me in today's dialogue. Just a bit about AGF. Al Ghurba Foundation, or AGF as we know it, continues the work of Al Fitra Foundation and the Inner Circle under the work of the late Imam Mohsin Hendricks. Al Ghurba Foundation currently remains the only organization in the Southern Hemisphere that supports LGBTQIA plus Muslims and provides services to the queer Muslim community and the marginalized in Cape Town and sometimes across South Africa. Now, as we all know, just 7 months ago, Imam Mohsin was tragically assassinated on the 15th of February in Gqeberha. While the full details of his killing are yet to emerge, we hope soon, available reports strongly suggest that this was no random act of violence, but rather a deliberate and targeted attack, one fueled, it seems, by religious-infused homophobia. Now, prejudice faced by members of our community have long included family and community rejection, and let's not forget self-rejection and self-abandonment. Many have felt, compelled to live a heteronormative life out of fear of being disowned or shamed by their families and communities. Many still face violence, forced marriages, especially in the colored and the Malay communities, and some even face exile from their homes and families. Many queer Muslims feel that they are not equipped to argue homosexuality from an Islamic theological perspective and hence are not very influential in changing the mindsets of the South African Muslim community and even their own families. Now, this causes them to be afraid to enter spaces of worship, especially after Imam's killing, because of fear of being thrown out, of being, or just being denied participation in these mosques. There's also there's this fear of being looked at differently and fears of talks from the pulpit condemning their existence. An example was 2 months ago when I attended a mosque in Kalk Bay, actually, and the talk was around homosexuality. And the imam was laughing. He was making a joke, of queer people. And this posed as a real threat. And obviously, that speech, that sermon itself, was fueled with a lot of hate towards queer people. I got up and I walked out in the middle of the sermon. Now, this ultimately, I believe, leads to exclusion. And this has been the cause of many people leaving the fold of Islam, the cause of mental health. A lot of mental health challenges was faced after the death of Imam in our community. Suicide and suicidal attempts. A lot of our members has gone back to substance abuse and other addictive behaviors. Now, I want to take us back to the 2022 fatwa issued by the Muslim Judicial Council against homosexuality. At that time, along with public statements just after that made by leaders such as Harun Ori from Pagat, and then a few days after Imam's assassination, a so-called sheikh by the name of Jamil Adams called for execution on a social media post. That fatwa issued by the MJC was a threat to queer Muslims. Now, shortly after Imam's killing, the Center for Contemporary Islamic Studies, UCT, issued a statement condemning the murder, which garnered signatures from 214 academics and activists. Following this, a Muslim organization in Johannesburg, Ummati, published the list of signatories on their website along with a new preface and cautionary warning. And the preface asserts, I quote, the names below have slandered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by claiming that Allah Azza wa Jal was not sure what gender to make humans. Thus he, Rabbul Izzah, made some humans queer. These monstrous statements that have excited their mouths will have disastrous results for them in this world and the year after. They have called LGBTQ priest Muhsin Hendricks a shaheed, a martyr. Muslims should be aware of mingling with such queer individuals as they may have a queer influence on you or your children. This has made our realities dangerous. Preaching that homosexuality is un-Islamic from pulpits has deeply influenced the attitudes of many Muslims, especially after the assassination of Imam. These messages spreads rapidly across social media, reinforcing ideas of separation. We are different from you, so we must separate. You are not of us, so we need to separate, even in our own families. And this fuels and has fueled a culture of violence against queer Muslims. I agree with Comrade Sikandar Cooper when he says that we need to start being firm in our approach to these threats. Organizations should come together and lay criminal cases against these threats against our human rights and existence. Now, the Al Ghurba Foundation has lost their space as a result of these threats, a space that some of us have been accustomed to for almost 20 years. We've also experienced Zoom bombing when we had our first Friday prayers after the killing of Imam, which was 2 months ago. Gruesome videos of cats being slaughtered began to flood our screens as Dr. Amina Wadud was about to give her khutbah, and one of our members was giving the adhan. As a result of these threats, queer Muslims experience cognitive dissonance, discrimination, and abuse on a daily in their Muslim communities where they are supposed to feel safe. Tragically, both structural and emotional violations of our human rights were weaponized through rigid scriptural interpretations promoted by religious orthodoxy and echoed from the pulpit. Some clerics, as we've just heard, openly campaign against LGBTQIA plus rights, unashamedly, amplifying community prejudice even in a country where our law guarantees equality. We find that sacred texts are frequently manipulated to justify exclusion, discrimination, and violence against queer people. 3 days after after the killing of Imam, we were evicted from our safe space that many of us called home for many years. We were forced to leave immediately as a result of fear experienced by the landlord because of the violent murder of Imam. Now, this left many of us feeling stranded and grieving yet another loss. The loss of a space that connected us to God without masks or segregation, and the loss of the connection to other like-minded individuals in ways that had proven to be so therapeutic for us. We looked forward to going to that space on a Friday, and we looked forward to Imam's cooking. He was such a good cook. He cooked for us every Friday. May God have mercy on his soul. That space offered programs that deepened our knowledge of Islam, expanded our understanding of sacred texts, which is used to condemn homosexuality, and it helped us grow through a lot of the healing work done. The space closing down was not just the loss of a building, but the loss of a sanctuary, a community, and a lifeline for many, as a result of what seems to be a war against queer people. The death of our spiritual leader, who had provided guidance, support, and counseling, was itself a profound loss. To then lose the space he had built on the vision of a compassion centered Islam and queer inclusivity only but compounded our pain. Some of us felt as though we were losing our minds. Others literally lost friends and family, and some lost the freedom of being openly queer, going into hiding once again. One member said, "I could not go into public for 3 months after Imam's killing." Now, there's also the constant paranoia and fear of what may happen to us if we appear openly queer. This anxiety affects every aspect of our lives, from how we dress to how we speak to what religious gatherings we attend or social events. Being visible at this point no longer feels safe. The fact that there have been no updates on Imam's case leaves us all feeling abandoned by our officials, as though we are not important enough, as though we are not worthy enough to be seen and heard. Justice for Imam, justice for Muhsin means justice for all of us. It would be a step towards healing a now open old age wound, and towards honoring the work he and so many of you in this room have done to bring remedy and hope to our community. But we must stand together, comrades. We must remember that we are one body, and we must not forget that an injury to one is an injury to all. I'm almost done, Lily. I believe that once we as LGBTQIA plus once we as an LGBTQIA plus community firmly stand together, rather than allowing for frivolous things to tear us apart, then we will become one step closer to winning this war against us. We need to also be firm in our approach to these threats. And I think that organizations should come together and lay criminal cases against these threats, against our existence. I think I mentioned that already. Thank you so much for having me here as a speaker. I'm so sorry, but I have to go right now, Lily, and everyone else. If there's anyone that has anything, any comments, or please reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. I'll send the organization's details on WhatsApp. And we are still alive, and we are still kicking, and we are still doing the work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was a really important input and also a call to solidarity and action. So thank you so much, and we're very grateful to have you here. And we understand that you won't be able to stay for the discussion, but you'll share the details with me, and I'll share them on the chat for anyone to get in touch with the foundation. Thank you. So our next speaker, who I think might be our last speaker, depending if our last speaker joins or not. Let me introduce Thomas Shamuyawira is a human rights activist and the founder and the director of The Fruit Basket. The Fruit Basket is a transgender and migrant-led organization which advocates for the rights, freedoms, safety, and security of LGBTIQ+ migrants, asylum seekers, and refugees living in South Africa. The Fruit Basket is dedicated to advancing the rights and welfare of LGBTQIA+ refugees, migrants, and asylum seekers who come to South Africa in search of safety. So with a passion for equality and social justice, Thomas has dedicated his life to advocating for the rights of marginalized communities. As an assistant researcher, he has conducted studies on the challenges faced by LGBTQI refugees and the impact of discrimination on mental health. He also actively volunteers his time to support various community-based initiatives. Through his work, Thomas strives to create a world where everyone, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender identity, social or immigration status, can live free from discrimination and persecution. And he's the chairperson of the Community Advisory Board of the Wits Reproductive Health Institute Transgender Clinic, and also the founder of the Queer and Trans Refugee Advocacy Network. So we are very, very grateful to have you here with us, and also to provide that really important perspective of the migrant community as well. So over to you, Thomas. Let's get you unmuted.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you, Lily. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today and for including the voice of queer and trans migrants, asylum seekers, and refugees in South Africa in the conversation today. I want to begin with a word I recently learned: inculcation. It means to instill an idea or belief in someone, often forcefully, almost like force feeding. For centuries, societies have tried to use inculcation as the solution, whether through the Bible, cultural traditions, or even the Constitution. We have assumed that if we simply tell people often enough or insist strongly enough, they will believe and live accordingly. But that has never worked. People do not live by the Constitution alone. Some live by their church's teachings, and others by ancestral traditions, others by philosophy, and still others by nothing but their own conscience. And every single text, whether it is scripture, culture, or law, is open to interpretation. Take, for example, the biblical instruction, go forth and multiply. Many religious Africans I know interpret it only as a call to reproduce. But others, including Bishop T.D. Jakes, remind us that God does not manufacture tables or houses for us. He gives us raw materials like trees, water, and clay, and expects us to multiply in creativity, wisdom, compassion, and not just children. The same sentence can mean two completely different things, depending on who is interpreting it. And so inculcation cannot be the solution to discrimination. We cannot force, for example, atheists to become religious. We cannot force people to abandon their culture, and we cannot force everyone to swallow the Constitution word for word. What then is the way when it comes to homophobia, transphobia, and xenophobia, the forms of discrimination that affect me personally and the community I serve? I believe that the answer lies in translation and connection. Translation means speaking to people in the language they understand, be it the language of faith, of culture, of law. If someone values the Bible, then let us show them that its call to love one another without exception includes queer and trans people too. If someone values the Constitution, let us remind them that equality before the law is not negotiable. If someone values culture, let us ask, what is culture if not the preservation of human dignity, family, and belonging? Connection means showing that the rights of one group are inseparably tied to the rights of others. And this, I believe, is where we have the strongest case. Because when one group's rights are denied, the danger quickly spreads. If a trans person is denied healthcare on the basis that God made you this way, then a woman needing breast reduction surgery for chronic back pain could also be denied treatment for the same reason. If refugees are denied protection from violence because they are not citizens, then tomorrow citizens themselves could find the state's law to protect them when they are attacked. If queer people are told that their families are not valid, then single mothers, widows, and orphans are also at risk of being told that their families do not qualify as real. This is not theory. We see it happening. In South Africa, even though with progressive laws, queer and trans people are killed simply for existing. Migrants and refugees are attacked for speaking a different language. Women and children face daily violence, and people living with disabilities are still treated as less than human. These are not separate struggles. They are the same struggle expressed in different bodies. So my message is this: we do not need to force people into one manual of life. We need to help people see how deeply connected our rights are. Protecting the rights of LGBTQIA people is not giving us special privileges. It is reinforcing the very foundation on which everyone's rights rest. When we strengthen equality for one, we safeguard dignity for all. And if we allow hatred, fear, and exclusion to continue unchallenged, it is not only queer people who lose, it is the whole of society. Right now, queer and trans refugees are being excluded from healthcare. Queer and trans South African citizens face health risks too due to this. Because we date each other, we live together, and we attend the same events. If I have an airborne disease that I cannot get treated, rest assured there is going to be an outbreak in the community. If we don't join in the fight, it will eventually spill over. I return to the word inculcation. If inculcation is about force-feeding beliefs, then perhaps our work is the opposite. It is not about force, but about translation, about connection and compassion. It is about showing people that when one of us is safe, all of us are safer. And if one of us is denied dignity, then all of us are at risk. That is how we move beyond discrimination, beyond fear, and into a society where every person, queer, trans, migrant, woman, child, or a person living with a disability, can live and thrive. In conclusion, something that I also strongly believe is that we must advocate consistently, not only reactively. Too often we raise our voices only after tragedy. Right now, many are speaking against Ngizwe's homophobic statements. That solidarity is very powerful, but it must not be occasional. We need it every day, even when there isn't a major backlash, because silence in ordinary times is what allows prejudice to grow. This work cannot be left to the LGBT community alone. It requires partnerships. Government, law enforcement, schools, faith institutions, and communities must all take responsibility. Each one of us has the power to shift narratives. Our words and actions can either reinforce the walls that keep us unsafe or help tear them down. Progressive laws may build the foundation, but it is the people in homes, in schools, in churches, and in mosques, in workplaces and communities who decide whether LGBTQI+ people live freely and safely. So let us confront the cherry picking, challenge the harmful narratives, and work together to create a South Africa where safety and dignity are just not written in the Constitution, but are lived in reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas Shamuyawiwa. Really, really appreciated. And I think, yeah, having the intersection of a migrant community and the queer community is also really important. And I think as we move on to the next discussion, I think what the whole world has learned or should learn more from the queer community is about intersectionality. Is about forming connections, forming community, forming solidarity. So yeah, as we move on to the discussion, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague Rebone Tao to chair the second half of this dialogue, where we'll be inviting anybody who would like to come in to. You can unmute yourself, but ideally you can use the raising hand function, which you can see there's a heart-shaped button, and over there it says react, and there you'll find raise hand, or you can write in the chat that I'd like to come in the chat, and then Rebone will call you to come in and provide your input or raise your question, and we'd also ask everyone to keep that maybe under about 3 minutes. I'm going to start off by reading the questions in the chat before we open, but anyone else who would like to come in is welcome to. And unfortunately, our last speaker who was a traditional healer and apostolic bishop, is not available because she had to attend to a funeral service at the time. But she might join us later, so we'll see. So from the chat, we have. But yes, you're welcome to write in the chat as we go. You can also all introduce yourselves in the chat, and please do indicate when you'd like to come in and speak. Barbara Dube says, Reverend, thank you so much for the comforting and encouraging words. Dimzi says, thank you so much to Reverend Nogutula. Uzomo Bruno Odom said, this is Odom Uzomo Bruno, Executive Director, Health Initiative for Equal Rights, Nigeria. And then Ms. Sia Hlongwa says, thank you for such powerful message and rich opening segment. I note that you mentioned there have been trainings done with police that have ensured acceptance and support for the LGBTQIA+, yet I have noted no such challenge. I think this is to Thuli Mjwara. This year, I've personally experienced identity theft with cell phone contracts taken in my name illegally, and the police refused to investigate because of who I am as a trans woman. Diane Bakuri said that this is true even here in Uganda, I think, about the discrimination against queer Muslims. And then Thuli Mjwara said to Sia Hlongwa, all the police stations are meant to have a file that has the standard operating procedures when it comes to LGBTQI+ related cases. Unfortunately, not every station trains its members, and often it's the GBV coordinators that attend the trainings as opposed to the front desk officers at the charge office. May I suggest that you follow up with the station command on the unprofessional behavior of the officers? And then Ms. Sia Hlongwa said, I did follow up and even escalated to the public prosecutor and nothing. Well, Vodacom has footage of the persons involved and it's an open and shut case, but my identity as a transgender woman is a blockage to justice. Monthly, I'm sent invoices for thousands of rands for cell phone contracts unknown to me due to identity theft, and the police do nothing to investigate or prosecute the perpetrators. I'm not the only trans person experiencing such discrimination. So that's what's in the chat at the moment, but you are welcome to all engage more in the chat and come in. Okay, over to you, Rebone.
Thank you, Lily. Let me first thank all the speakers for the presentations that they've presented. I mean, they were very richful presentations. I mean, we looked at the issue of religion, heritage, African identity. And I mean, when you look at religion, whether both Islamic or Christianity, there remains discrimination. Some of the issues that were raised about self-rejection, violence, forced marriages, and then also the importance of organizations to come together and lay criminal charges, the question of what is culture, but also that we must continue to advocate and not react when incidents happen, which I think also this is one of the things that SALO tries to do in terms of its work, making sure that they continue to create safe spaces for such discussions. And for now, we'll open the session to the participants who want to make comments or ask questions. I don't know if anyone is available at this point to make a comment or ask a question, so that to the panel that just presented.
I see there is a hand up.
Okay, I can't see from my side, but can you just say their name, Lily?
Oh, Diane Bakuraira.
Diane? Okay, I'm seeing now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Diane Sydney Bakrera, and I work with Sexual Minorities Uganda, but I also co-founded Women of Faith in Action. I appreciate the previous speakers for throwing such insights to the work that is being done, and I also appreciate the fact that we are sort of trying to find a collective solution to how we can deal with the whole crisis around religious homophobia, but also the self-stigma that community has. My comments are around and also May Imam Hendricks continue to rest in peace. I personally met them and we had had a conversation. I'm glad that someone has taken on the mantle. So my question is around how collaborations with the institution I don't want to mention it wrongly, Al Kuba Foundation can be cemented, because we realize that, I'm now speaking in the Ugandan context, we realize that most of the faith work being done is Christian-centered, and I've interacted with many Muslim comrades who feel, their voices aren't really well represented. So I was wondering if, the foundation has resources or space or programs that provide skilling in advocacy around, the Muslim faith, but also if there are safe spaces that are available. Like, I appreciate this call because it brings all of us together. Then I also appreciate the fact of, us being proactive instead of being reactive. But how do we do that on a regional collaboration affair? Because again, when we talk about some people living out the African tradition or the African beliefs, there's also a challenge here in Uganda. So I'm trying to figure out how we can cement this regionally, or how organizations doing this faith work in Uganda can be supported. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone who has a question or a comment? I'll take it back to the panels. We'll start with Reverend Elder Noktula Dladla. If you want to respond, and then we'll be followed by Tuli Mjwara, hope I'm pronouncing it well, and then Thomas Shamurari, sorry for the pronunciation. Yeah, that's how it will follow. And then we can see if there's still any comments or questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Diana, for the question. I think collaborations are very important, because we have seen that working in silo is not going to help us at all. And with Global Interfaith Network, we, especially to this program that I lead, that is religious dialogue, we have realized also that we have not included Muslims into the program. And these are two religions, Christianity and Islamic, that have a lot of so much hate that we are seeing that comes from those two spaces. Not that other religions are not, but we have now begin to think outside of Christianity and make sure that we are now including, all other faiths, so that then we become, do these collaborations. But also we have realized that, we have so many queer religious leaders that we have left out into, creating that army. I call it an army of queer religious leaders, because our focus has only been working with religious leaders, with having them to be trained into having to speak on these issues. But we then realize that it is not really something that is, because when you are speaking from your lived experience, you have more, and also that we are trying to promote that queer people themselves, maybe it is time for us to take, up the space and, be visible and speak about our own challenges, and also not that, there's only challenges, but also, the things that we have, the gains that we have already have found, and so I think, your question is very important to really see how best we can be able to do these collaborations, because collaborations are more powerful than just us doing things in silos, and figure out ways on how we can be able to work together. So I hope I have answered your question.
Didi, oh, sorry, I could
we'll have, okay, yeah, Tuli, you can go. Yeah.
Okay, Didi, thank you very much for that question, and I know it was directed to Al Kuba. But I'm part of, Inclusive and Affirming Ministries is part of the queer interfaith collective here in South Africa, of which Al Kuba Foundation is a member of. Since the passing of Imam, they've just been in a transitional phase, and having to adjust, as she shared, around losing the property. There's also been some internal challenges in the continuation and sustainability of support and work. And a lot of it is rooted around safety and security. So if you're looking at how would collaboration with Ahuba look like, I would suggest that you email them, as she shared the email address, or WhatsApp them via text. And what is happening at the moment is that it's few individuals on the board that are being selective on the interventions that they can support. As there isn't a person who is available 24/7 in working with Ahuba, but it's the board.
Is it me or we lost Tuli?
Can you hear me?
No, she's loud and clear. Yeah, I think it's you.
Sorry, Didi.
You're loud.
So if you reach out to Al Huba, the board will respond to you, as they do not have a permanent employee that is doing the work, but it's now up to the board in terms of how they select certain interventions. I also want to encourage you to reach out to other organizations. So, for example, like PEMA Kenya, they continue the work in terms of offering support to Muslims who are Kenyans. And they have also, Ishmael was also trained and mentored by Imam Mohsin. So there are other scholars that do offer support where collaboration can exist as well. In relation to regional collaboration, we see now our main focus is around how do we counteract the anti-gender movement in Africa. We have seen, even with the death of Charlie Kirk, where certain African persons were wanting to host memorials, even though Charlie Kirk was known to to spew a lot of hate speech when it comes to women, when it comes to Black African people, and so forth. What I would suggest is reach out to different organizations around possible collaboration, because there is a wave of cross-movement collaboration that's happening. There are even task teams that have been set up not only to infiltrate and monitor the anti-gender movement, but there are also task teams that are deliberate in the interventions that we plan to ensure that we curb and we actually stop the growth of the anti-gender movement in Africa. Thank you.
Thomas?
Yeah, thank you. I don't think I have a lot to add. I think Tuli and Reverend really answered the questions very well. But I think what I can just also add is that I think when it comes to solidarity, I think there's a lack sometimes when something that's happening in the community or within the community doesn't really affect us directly. I think the energy that we receive. So, for example, I'm speaking in terms of the LGBTQI plus refugees community. There is a lot that is happening right now that, in my opinion, is crimes against humanity. And my approach to this is posting about it every day and making sure that people know. But I feel like the response that I get to the message that I put out there, to the posts talking about the exclusion from healthcare, for example, that is happening right now that everybody knows about it, the response is not as strong as I would want it to be from the community. Yes, there is a response. Yes, there is reaction. Yes, there is support. But I feel like it's not so much. So I think that if, as a community, we stand together so strongly in that way, that if it affects Thomas because he's a trans refugee, and it doesn't affect me because I'm a trans citizen, I am going to stand with Thomas and fight with him and everyone else like him with whatever it takes. I think if we can stand with each other like that, even when it doesn't affect us directly or personally, I think that can help us also. And another thing, I don't know if this is even important or worth mentioning, with this thing that's happening right now with Ngizwe, I think he went on video and he expressed himself very strongly with gestures and so much emotion to say exactly what he thinks and how he feels about what's happening. But our response is we go on social media and then we type and then we write long messages like this. But sometimes what people need is to see a face and to hear a voice and to see that emotion as well in order for there to be, I don't know, empathy or a response. Because I myself even am guilty of it sometimes, that when I go on social media and I see a very long post, even though the heading of it or the caption is speaking to something that I'm really interested in, but if the text is very long, I read the first paragraph and I move off, and I scroll and I keep going. But sometimes if it's a video, I can really listen even to this guy. He's spewing a whole lot of hate and rubbish, but still I listened to the whole video, and every time I come across it, I'm listening, I'm watching it again, even though it hurts me, even though it's negative. So I think that we should also try as a community to match that energy. If somebody comes with emotion in this way, then we do the same and respond. Social media is a platform that people are using to spread hate and whatnot. And videos really, really do a number on our movement and all the progress that we've made. And I think also, I know that it's also very dangerous for people to put their faces out there like that. But I also think that if there are some amongst us who are courageous enough to match that same energy and respond and reciprocate in that way, I think that that can also just help us to achieve some form of, I don't know, of what we are trying to achieve here. But yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks to the panel. Okay, I'll start firstly before I take your hands. There's something on the chat box from Gilbert Kato. He says, "Hi everyone. How do we leverage pleasure politics platforms like Pride to refocus on activism and awareness raising?" And let me see. Okay. So I will then start with Ms. Sia Shongwa, and then Achi Tenet Hamon will then follow. Thanks. Please introduce yourself and where you come from.
Thank you for the opportunity. I am really honored to get the platform to speak, but also I think this is such a critical time for us to have a conversation such as this, particularly because, the
Sia, please introduce yourself, who you are and where you're from before you proceed.
Sure. So my name is Sia Shongwa. Being a trans woman born and raised in Johannesburg, South Africa, I am a human rights activist. I work with the Resilience Rising Initiative, a nonprofit organization working to build capacity for leaders in various sectors, including the LGBTQIA+ community. I just wanted to sort of map out the terrain within this conversation, just thanking you for this platform, but also highlighting the critical need for these engagements to not only happen in siloed conversations such as this, with us consoling each other and holding each other in solidarity, but we need to be reaching out there, and we need to invite stakeholders who are really critically involved in this work, such as the SAPS, such as the Department of Health, to have with us such conversations, but also spotlight the issues that we're facing. OHCR, UN and multilateral institutions, particularly around issues of migrant rights. And also, I guess to conclude, I also wanted to make an announcement, and I hope that the hosts will actually allow me to share with the chat more information about this. But essentially, we have a community of practice comprised of organizations from across the African continent within the LGBTQ movement, and essentially having conversations similar to this, but also expanding to collaborative initiatives that we do collaboratively in terms of addressing such issues as the anti-gender movement and other projects aligned to human rights protections for the LGBTQ+. Thank you once again for the opportunity. And should you have any more questions or requests from me, I'd love to obviously expand further. Thank you.
Thank you, Sia. Machi, you can go.
Hi everyone. My name is Agidinet Hamon. I'm a trans person. I'm a pastor from Uganda. And I just want to add a little bit of something about what Diane said. This part always catching us off guard. I've been having a discussion with Diana and a few, also other people about how about we establish maybe an academy that is equipping young generation with tools of activism and teaching them about faith, about faith, about giving them pastoral care, all these things. Now let me give an example. How the imam was killed. This part always catching us off guard, and by the time we realize it, the people that are in the faith movement, no offense, they are growing old. When we grow old, we need time to heal and just relax and take time off this kind of work. What are we doing as leaders? What are we doing as leaders? What are we going to leave after when we have when we are going into retirement? Because we are leaving no one else that is gonna carry this work on, like it's gonna carry this work on ongoing. How about we have an academy of ours that is gonna teach Muslim people on how to integrate the Quran into as an affirming weapon, integrate the Bible as an affirming tool, all these kind of things, equip young generation, because we are growing old, and we also it's gonna reach a time when we're as worn out as we're human beings. So it's gonna reach a time when we are worn out. But what kind of people are we leaving behind? Because we do not know what the future holds for us. I may be speaking here, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen today. That's the kind of life we're living in Uganda. You don't know. Every day you survive, or every day you wake up is a miracle. Is an achievement to us back here home in Uganda. So what are we leaving behind, or what are we doing? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any other hands, questions or comments? All right. So we'll go back to the same routine that we did with the first round of the questions. Thank you. Dr. Reverend Elder Nokulatala, you start first. The others will follow.
It is a very important question or observation from Angie. I think it speaks more of how can we make sure that the work does not die because we did not empower or give back, especially as the generation. I am gray right now, meaning that my years of being here in this world are limited. And so my role is to make sure also that, in my personal capacity, I am mentoring the young people to make sure that it does not just become things ends, with me, but on my capacity, that is what I am doing within the church to make sure that then we are building that capacity of the young leaders that are going to follow up. But also, we have created now within the Metropolitan Community Church and African MCC network that is aiming to do one of those activities to make sure that, you know, we give back, especially as the older generation, to give back to the young generation. So it is an open space that is being created to make sure that, you know, the work continues. We find ways to see how work can continue. As I mentioned before, that we also now within GIN, that is the aim. That is one of the very important, you know, conversation that has begun to say, what can we do? Because we are seeing that we need more, you know, like I call them soldiers. We need more soldiers who are going to be able to, you know, to continue the work. So there is these spaces that have been created. It's just us having to share more information on, you know, what can that look like, and also how we can collaborate with different stakeholders to make sure that we are prioritizing the young generation right now. Thank you.
I think to reiterate what my counterpart and colleague shared, I just want to add this part around we need to stop gatekeeping opportunities. Sometimes people will be like, oh no, there's a call for applications, whether it's for a fellowship, whether it's to a conference, but people don't share the links. We need to stop gatekeeping opportunities. We need to also, once you've shared the link, when people ask for support, this is where we also need to step up in helping. For example, I know with the LBQ Connect, they had a call out for LBQ activists, and they were looking, they had a call for applications. I shared the link with a number of groups, and a few people came forward saying, can you please assist me with this particular program? Even though I've never been part of the LBQ Connect, but because I've participated in a fellowship that Outright International had hosted previously, I had an understanding of how are they form structured and how to respond. So what I did then was to download a copy, get them to do a draft, reread it, help them restructure it, help them in formatting before sending through their applications. So it's very important that we assist others in accessing the same opportunities that we have also had the fortune and privilege to access. Also mentorship and support. So mentoring younger activists. And this is, I'm going to flag something that's going to be a little bit problematic. We are also seeing that in our community, some of the older generation, when they say mentoring, they start dating younger activists. That is not mentorship. We need to keep remaining professional in our role. And when you mentor someone, you're assisting them in building their activism by sharing readings, by sharing opportunities, by getting their voice and strengthening their activism, and not necessarily getting them into your bed. And I think this is something that we also need to be very clear on, so then we do not pass on a toxic culture within our sector. That said, another thing that I always highlight, and I highlighted this at the Kumbulani Pride, is that young people and young activists need to come forward that want to grow their activism. You cannot continuously in every space that you come in keep saying the narrative, oh, they keep saying being queer is un-African. But there's more research that has been done. There's been research that has been done for years. There's a lot of reading that's out there. We need activists that read. We need activists that write. We need activists that capture their realities and engage with the community, so we do not keep being stuck at step one, but we move beyond that. People have been working and fighting for LGBTQ rights for centuries. So there's a lot of resources that are available. Let's use them. Let's change our narrative. And then let's also document and share with others. So Didi in Uganda can capture their stories around how do we continue the movement and build the movement, even though there's a legal system that does not recognize and protect us. Because what they capture in Uganda could be the learning points for other for other activists who are seeing that shift as governments are slowly and parliamentarians are now being captured by the anti-gender movement, and parliamentarians are passing private bills that want to limit the freedom of LGBTQ persons. So please document your work. Please share your work. Please share podcasts that you listen to. That way they become accessible. And let's open up the space. It's not about always having Tuli and Noktula and Thomas in the space in order for it to have weight. For as long as we have activists that are speaking the truth, that are living the truth, and who are saying we are here and we claim our space, we must give them the same equal opportunity, whether they are Deputy Minister Honorable Steve Letseke, or they are Sizwe Sitole, who's coming from rural space in Newcastle. We all have narratives that matter, and all our voices need to be amplified equally. And we have the responsibility to constantly ask ourselves, who has been left behind? Who is not in the space? We can't keep having the same people who are leading the flagship. We need mass voice. We need new faces. We need new voices. But those new faces and new voices must be educated, and they must know what they're speaking to. Thank you.
Maybe,
Thanks, Tuli.
yes, just to add on what Tuli has said, I also want to add the point of, also us having to know that, there's also, with mentoring, it does not mean that I cannot be able to learn from the young people, because they also have so much knowledge, and they can also contribute towards making sure that, the work continue. Tuli is right that we need an army that is educated, the army that is willing to be able to, to journey together. Because yes, I think for a long time we have focused so much energies outside of outside of our own space by, training and doing, advocacy and doing all these other things, because now we have built a lot of work around our lives. But this is the time where we need to also, begin to have these intentional conversation, because what I am seeing is that for a long time we had this narrative that we don't have these things, we don't have activists, we only have these faces, like Tuli saying that there's Noktula and Tuli, and but we have a lot. And if the young people can also recognize that it is possible to be themselves, it is possible to integrate their sexuality and their spirituality. It is possible to take ownership of their gifts and talents. It is possible to know that the things that we assumed that they are not here, we have parliamentarians, we have priests, we have queer engineers, we have all these talents and gifts that we can now start to utilize, and stop waiting for someone to say, I accept you. But if you know yourself that I belong in this world, and my contribution means something that can also change, we need to change from being victims and take a stand to say, we want to show up in the world with that, because we have been waiting for a long time to be accepted, so that we can be able to take ownership or taking up space. But this is the time that we need to make sure that we now know that you don't need permission to be. You don't need permission as a young person, but you need to know that you belong in this world, and what is my contribution to the struggle. So, what is the contribution that I have that I can give? But also I want to add the point that it is not only the struggles, we also need to celebrate, because there's so much that, these gifts and talents have really proven us that LGBTIQ plus people can be able to do, amazing things. And we need to celebrate those gains that we have seen and the things that are important for us. If we can build these movements together, then it is possible. Nothing is impossible.
All right, what we'll do right now, because I don't see any hands up, so we'll then get closing remarks. But before the closing remarks, we'll go back to the speakers. We'll start with Thomas, your last words, and then from there we'll go to Tuli, and then Reverend Lada, and then Nuluvuyo will do the closing remarks. I'll hand over to her after Reverend Lala. Thank you. So Thomas, you can start first.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to Tuli and Reverend Noktula for jumping in there and answering all the questions and yeah, saving me. I guess in conclusion, I just want to say that, you know, that South Africa's constitution is the most progressive, one of the most progressive in the world when it comes to LGBT rights. And the continent looks up to South Africa because this is the country that we have. This is the place that we have as the queer community to run to when our lives are in danger in our countries of origin. And I know that there is so much work that is being done in South Africa by activists, by, you know, organizations, by our allies, our friends, by law enforcement even, you know, by the government. But the way that the community that I belong to and the community that is served by the organization that I founded is unsafe majority of the times. The way that the community that I belong to has all odds staked up against us at all times has gone on for too long. I fled persecution in 2011 until 2025. The struggle for documentation for our community still continues. Sia mentioned UNHCR, mentioned OHCHR, and diplomatic missions and all other people that can support us. We have tried over the years, we have reached out. They also have limitations that they spell out to us every time. And the question that I have always gone in with has always been, thank you for reiterating at every point what it is that you are unable to do, the limitations that you have. We know that now, but what we don't know is what it is exactly that you can do to help support our community. What it is exactly that you can do as an intervention. And for 15 years and for the 10 years that I have been doing the work, there has never really been a solid answer. So that leaves this to us as the people with the lived experiences, as the people who are directly affected by these challenges, by these issues, to stand together and find a solution. Right now, we have people that have lived in South Africa for so long, and South Africa is the home that they know. But at this point, they need to leave South Africa and go start afresh elsewhere. Leaving everything that you know for a second time, for a third time, that's not the way to live life. What we are looking for is to just settle and become contributing citizens. But if systems keep us on the move, it means we can never have families of our own. It means we can never build anything for our own. It means we can never have stability in our lives. We are always looking to move to a safer country, to a safer place.
which is very, very difficult because for an African to acquire a visa to go to Europe, to go to West, to go to any other place that is considered safe for queer people, that is a challenge, a very big challenge. So it means that majority of our community is stuck in South Africa. How do we make South Africa safe for everybody that lives in it, like the Constitution says? Because for as long as the Constitution says what it says, which is the country belongs to everybody who lives in it, which is the country grants protection based on sexual orientation and gender identity, it means LGBT Africans will continue to flee persecution from their countries into South Africa. So what do we do to make South Africa safe so that those that have fled will come and find peace and be able to at least become adults? Because right now we live like children who depend on organizations for what we eat, for what we wear, for what we do on a daily basis. We have people that have lived in shelters for years. Because where do I go? I cannot get a job because I don't have the right papers, not because I don't want to, but the system is broken. The system is broken. We have tried everything that we can to fix that system so that people can get documented. We have adults, I'm a 40-year-old man who does not have stability in his life, even though I'm the founder of an organization that has helped so many people. So what do we do? Until when do queer and trans refugees continue to live like that? To live like children that depend on others for survival, for livelihood? We can stand together and make South Africa safe for everybody that is living in the country right now. I don't know what we need to do that, but I think more focus need to go on there as well. More attention need to go on there right now. We are watching as operations are sending people away from hospitals. We are watching and we are not doing as much as we can. Why have we not gone in front of these hospitals next to the operations and we protest there right next to them so that they see that what they are doing is wrong? But we type on social media, but we don't really do much about it. I think it's time that we practice that active solidarity because queer and trans refugees that are in South Africa are struggling right now, and we need the support of you, our fellow queer and trans South African citizens. We stand with you on everything, be it pride. We are marching in front with all of you, but when it comes to us, we have to stand on our own sometimes, or the solidarity is not as strong as it is supposed to be. Why has there not been a march of LGBT people to these public hospitals where all of these operations are stopping us from getting in and getting the treatment that we want? Can we practice the solidarity that we feel we have given even under the restrictions that we have? Sometimes we cannot even travel to go to Pride because of the roadblocks that are in the road with the fear of getting arrested. But still we make it to Pride and we stand and we do everything. When there's an event, we are there, we are speaking. It might not even be safe for me to be speaking in front of you right now as I'm doing, because this is going to go public, because SALO has a big platform. But I am doing it. This is the solidarity that I'm asking for. That when we say we are going through this, can we get the same kind of support for the problems and the challenges that we face on a daily basis? Thank you.
All right, then Tulu will follow, and then Reverend Taga.
Thank you very much. Thank you to my colleagues that I shared the panel with. Thank you to those who took the time to listen to us, to interact, to engage, and also those who will be taking what we shared to reflect and let it hone their own work and how they see and change the community. I think in closing, what I just want to highlight is that transformation work is continuous. It's ongoing, and it calls on all of us to step up and work smarter in our own spaces. transformation work calls on us to also be cognizant that we're not all at the same level in relation to the work that we do. One speaker once said, for example, some of us, if we were to take a trip, let's imagine we are taking a trip and we are driving to an equal Africa. And I mean, when I say Africa, I'm including all 54 states. Now, when someone is driving, those who've been professional drivers who've been driving for years will know that when you're planning a trip, they're already thinking about toilet breaks, they're thinking about where do we get snacks, they are thinking about where we can get accommodation and rest. Whereas some of us who are still learning how to drive, when you get into the car, you are thinking about, are my mirrors okay? Is my seat okay? Is there nothing blocking my view or blocking my feet from the brakes and the clutch? And then when you're thinking about, oh, when I get to a stop sign, I must look left and right and before I drive. And so too in our societies in creating transformation, everyone is at a different level. Some of us are at the level of saying we are wanting legal change, and this is how legal change looks like. And we step up into challenging positions and put ourselves on the front line. While others, transformation for them simply means just turning up to church and even calling out your minister or calling out your parent and saying, ma, you don't talk about LGBTQ people like this. You don't talk about foreign nationals like this. You don't talk about, queer persons like this. So every little action that we do adds to building the transformation that we want to see in our world. I also want to encourage collaboration, that we see that the anti-gender movement is intentional in erasing and eroding whatever progress we have. Having the Constitution of South Africa, yes, we're proud of it, but that does not mean it will always stay this way. One thing we have seen in the US is how even progressive laws such as Roe versus Wade has been they've taken 15, 20 years back by getting, by removing the right of choice of women. And we cannot say, oh, no, it's only happening in the US, it's not going to happen here. We have seen that Family Watch International wants to host its next anti-rights conference in Cape Town in 2027. They are going to be bringing in delegates from the US, from Kenya, from Uganda, from around the world to try and use our country as a stage to continue mobilizing. One thing the anti-rights have also done is that they have shared their plans in books such as the Project 2025. If you go onto their websites, you will see they have clearly dictated that if they have power, this is this and this and this is what they're going to target, and this is how they're going to do it. Which means our work is very simple. We need to know what their plans are. We need to be in those spaces, and we need to start working smarter. We need to start working across movements and showing up, marching and being vocal. For example, currently in Cape Town, there is a decriminalization case that is being led by sex workers education and advocacy task force. We need to show up for the sex workers. We need to show up for the trans community who are currently struggling to access hormonal treatment. In our trainings and conversations, we need to normalize the access of affirming care. It is not a privilege. It's not a luxury. The same way that heterosexual people will take erectile dysfunctional medication, or they'll go get BBLs, or they will go get cancer treatment, is the same way that trans people have the right to access affirming healthcare. And we need to have the conversations so people don't see it as if it's a privilege, don't see it as if it's cosmetic, don't see it that it's something only the rich can access. This is about basic healthcare for all. And when we talk about basic healthcare for all, we need to stop putting it on a pedestal, othering it, but they need to understand that it's normalized. Another last thing is we also need, in our conversations, we must stop using the narratives that have been used by homophobic people in how they paint LGBTQI persons. So stop using things like, oh, we don't believe in Adam and Steve. That is not our language. And I'm sure it wasn't a queer person who even started that nonsense, right? We need to start using affirming interpretations of scriptures. So one of my colleagues always says, I don't understand when people want to limit God. Where there's, if God took 7 days, not 5, 7 days to create the world, this is the same God who created a diversity of flowers. If you think of roses, there's not only one type of rose or one type of flower. Roses come in different colors. Flowers, there's over so many species of different flowers. Animals, there's so many species of animals. Those living on water and land, there's so many different species. If you look at the sun, it rises and it sets. But in between the sunrise and the sunset, there's that beautiful dusk. There's that beautiful coloring of the skies. And that is where the creativity and the richness comes from. Our being as diversity is not just about being a man or a woman. It's in that in between where the beauty flourishes. So we need to tap into that yes, we are different. And we are different and we are beautiful and we are creative and we are more than what people want to limit us to. We need to show up, we need to support, and we need to walk together. Let's not gatekeep. Let's not try and regulate how people show up. There is a growing concern also within our sector as LGBTQI persons, where certain people will say, oh yeah, but are you trans enough? Are you intersex? I mean, we won't have a bisexual woman talking for this. No, we cannot gain gain momentum and help with transformation if in our sector we are already divided. We are not monolithic and we will never look the same. We are not sheep, we're all different. And if we're coming together and we're preaching inclusion and diversity, we also need to recognize that we are all different, but we want the same thing. And the same thing is respect, to be treated with dignity, to access the same services without having to explain who are you sleeping with and how are you sleeping with people. It calls on us to call out that ridiculousness as well in saying, so I can't access a service because you want to know how I sleep with a person. And also holding those people accountable because there are structures that they report to. They did not get hired because of their faith in terms of working in institutions such as the clinic or in service provision. They were hired because they said, I have a calling to serve the community, and I am community. I show up as community, and we need to hold people accountable. So in my closing, I just also want to say we must not lose courage. And the anti-gender movement has lots of money. They are throwing money to gain momentum. They are being strategic. They are targeting presidents' wives who often are always looking for cases to lead, to champion. So those of us who are holding political standing and have access to those back doors, let's use those opportunities to whisper to those wives to say, actually, how about championing a cause that is inclusive in this manner? And those of us who can't access those spaces, let's go back into our community. Let's go back into our Lavender Hills, into our Belleville's, into our Kwamashu, and have those kitchen, the kitchen soups and show that being queer doesn't mean, I'm not going to wake up and be so measy and have Louis Vuittons and be on the stage. When I walk into a space, everyone is going to be like a celebrity. But I am a Thuli. When I walk into my church, people know that if you're a queer person and you have any questions, you can come to Thuli and you can ask Thuli. If you're a parent who has questions, you can come to Thuli and she will show you where to go. So let us grow in our own spaces, but also let's ensure that we ourselves are fertilizing ourselves with the right information, that our messaging is the same, and that we also hold each other and we walk together in creating a South Africa that is alive with possibilities. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, thank you. Seems like we might have Bishop Matlompo Blessing Shabalala who just joined. She was supposed to be one of the speakers for this session. And I think if she's just joined, I think maybe let's just give her 2 or 3 minutes just to say a few things from the traditional healer's perspective, because for us, it goes back to what the last speaker spoke about, the unity and the inclusivity. So I don't know, has she joined, Lily, before we go to Reverend Dada for the closing
Doesn't
remarks?
look like it. She did say she was able to join now, but it doesn't look like she has managed to.
Okay, it's fine. Then we go to Reverend Dada, and then from there, Nolubuyo, you'll take over. I'm leaving now. Thank you.
So it seems like Cody wanted to also show us this. Okay. My last remarks, I want to say thank you very much to the SALO team and everyone who is here, and my friends in the panel. You have said a mouthful, and it is such a great honor to be always sharing the stage with all of you. Thomas said something very powerful about active solidarity or practicing solidarity. It has just been since we have started this conversation to talk about how can we really work together? How do we do that intentionally by making sure that we don't just focus on one struggles, and when there's a lot of struggles that we are seeing around us. As Tuli was talking and Thomas was talking, I was just thinking about how do we begin to have conversations about how do we clean our backyard? So do we clean our backyard by making sure that we are now beginning to really promoting or working hard to make sure that working in silo is not working for all of us anymore. And, we having such a beast that has come into destabilizing the work that have been done for many, many years. And we are seeing that anti-gender movement, it is here. And we need to find ways to say, how do we start beginning by cleaning our own backyard? Because if we are not going to be cleaning our own backyard, we will continue working in silos, will continue being divided, will continue not really competing because now we are not able to come together and do our own and do that to make sure that we are building ourselves to be able to face what we are seeing. And I always say that, we can't fight religion with anything. We have to also make sure that we are building, I keep on saying these soldiers, because what we are really seeing with anti-gender movement, evangelicals and conservative narrative that continuously, creating a lot of problems within our own communities. But we also are seeing a lot of, things in media around people who now have found Jesus. They are now, are not gay anymore. And that narrative is really creating a lot of problems because now, and then it brings us back to the space of now we will see a lot of conversion therapy, because now if then there's these kinds of narrative about, I was gay and I found Jesus and now I'm okay. So how do we, make sure that we now becomes, and standing up for those kinds of narratives, because it is very harmful and it is very scary how even, it's like things are coming out. How do we stop ourselves from just reacting to a situation and make sure that we find ways to say, how do we organize ourselves? By cleaning our own backyard will mean that we are now beginning to have these conversations of cleaning our, organizing ourselves to a point that we are able to deal what we are seeing, the beast that is coming. But I also want to encourage, that we are not just a sexual being. I keep on saying that we also bring so much talents and gift. Or this is the time we also take our weapons. This is the time that we take ourselves so serious. This is the time that we're creating spaces of building capacity. This is the time that, we are building ourselves into making sure that, we are utilizing what God has given us. And this is the time to know that it is possible to integrate your sexuality and spirituality. It is possible that we can change our own narrative into, I am not just a sexual being, I am not just a lesbian, but I have more. There's many things about me and how I show up in the world. I'm not written here as a lesbian, but I am a human being and I belong in this world. I am going to continue fighting for, for my existence, but at the same time, I just want to show up and know that I belong. So we all belong and we all are loved by God and we are all created in the image of God. And, we must not make a mistake to think that we are just here in this world, just to add or just to, to be erased by others. But we are here in this world, we belong, and we can give ourselves an opportunity to make sure that we are showing up. We are showing up. We are doing amazing things in our little corners. How do we bring those things together? For the goodness of our own community. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think just before closing, it looks like we had invited Bishop Mahlompo Blessing Shabalala, who's a traditional healer and apostolic bishop, to speak. And she wasn't able to join us before because she had a very busy schedule today. But if you would like to provide us with maybe 1 or 2 minutes, you're welcome to come in now if you'd like to. Bishop Mahlompo.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, we can hear you.
Okay, that's wonderful. Sorry, guys, for joining you guys late. My name is Dr. Mahlampo Shabalala, as mentioned, and thank you so much for this great opportunity. Unfortunately, I'm trying to catch up, but I'm just glad that I've been given this opportunity to be part of this wonderful and informative session that you guys are having right now. Well, I've just listened to one speaker, and I think it's Reverend. As I was listening to the Reverend, something came through to me that I felt that it really touched my heart to say, within the churches or within the Christian organizations, there's a lot of things that we need to educate the community at large. Number one should be the fact, and I think it also needs to be emphasized in schools, to say in each and every one of us, that's why I always teach people, that's what I always make sure that people get to understand the LGBTQIA facilities, to say what it is, to say if we need to educate people for them to get to understand who we are, because so many people change this into change us basically into how it suits them. So if I think if we need to teach people more, it's for us by truly saying that, in each and every male that believes that he's a straight male, there are female hormones within that person. So that is why you find it a point that in most cases, even in a female, there are male hormones that are within the being gay or being or queer or so forth, right? It's only a matter of which hormone has suppressed which hormone for the one to be visible. That is why at times we find a man having to do duties that if a woman needs to do or perform those duties, the man would actually do them better. So I think one thing that I've had the Rev mentioning is to say somebody would say I was gay, but until I found God, then probably others would say this is no longer I'm no longer gay, or being gay is a sin, and all those things. So I think the most important thing, if we could get it from the ground, if we could get it from our kids in the streets, if we could get it in churches to emphasize, to say, okay, the word of God says, meaning the world on its own, it belongs to God. Now, who are we to try and discriminate other people due to their sexual preference? Because one thing that I would tell you, in this world, each and every one of us, guys, he or she is gay, because there is no one on earth who only has one hormone. It has never happened, and it's not even going to happen. Each and every one of us, there are female hormones in a male, there are male hormones, there's your progesterone and testosterone in one person. It's only a matter of which hormones actually are more powerful than the other one. That is why you find somebody growing up thinking or assuming that he's straight, and in the long run, that's when you get to see the feminism in that person. So I think the most important thing that I feel that this would actually help a lot. I'm actually recording this because I've got a program in one of the radio stations in the Val Triangle that I talk about the community at large. So I just loved what the ref has actually mentioned, to say this has been here before, and we're not going anywhere. It's not like, when we grew up, there was always a myth, and people believed the myth, and it even went to as far as our kids, until we got to change them. People used to say, no, albinos, they don't pass on, they just vanish, blah, blah, blah. And it was a lie, and kids grew up with that. So with this one, we should actually emphasize it more, especially in churches, to say, if you believe in Christ, then you must respect the other person. If you feel that this person it's not who you think he or she is, then the most important thing is to try and learn. So I believe that the community, the Christian, because most of the people that we call ourselves Christians are the one who are full of judging others, not because of we get to understand what's happening to them. But funny part is that majority of the people that discriminate or judges, they tend to be after nines. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Over to you, Vuyo.
Greetings. I think it's afternoon right now. My name is Nolu Vuyomjoli from SALO. I'd just like to extend my greetings and my gratitude basically to all the people that have taken their time to be with us today, from our speakers to the floor and to the people that also contributed in the questions section. So I think just to maybe recap on what we are living with on today's dialogue, there have been issues that were raised basically about spaces, about the queer community not having enough space or freedom to lead, in the church spaces. So I think going forward, we might need to revisit or strengthen maybe, queer people taking leadership, or maybe having dialogues basically that infuse the queer community with the faith leaders, and also how that integrates with the traditional cultures that we come from. So I think this also came with one of the contributions from the floor, where one of the questions that arose is from Uganda was the issue of how do we integrate our sexuality with our faith, and also with the cultures that we are coming from as African people. So I think maybe going forward, you need to maybe revisit those discussions, maybe try and invite traditional leaders to have these kind of engagements, because I think if you look at this Ngizwe Mkhunu statement that just rose in the media not so late, despite the negativity that comes with that, but it raises very important questions basically into what is the discussion or the conversation with traditional leaders around the queer community somehow. So these are kind of things that we need to ponder on. I think one of the basically of being queer, and also migration as well. I think from Fruit Basket, we got to hear some profound notes basically about how we shouldn't watch the neighbor's house burning, because the sentiments that are shared right now that when we're not really affected with the trans issues, people tend to look away, but now when it affects the entire rainbow, then people only come to the forefront to try and fight in the injustices that are happening. But despite everything, I think that this was a really fruitful discussion that really merged three sectors together. So I think going forward, we can maybe build upon points and see how we can, bring other stakeholders to this dialogue for a fruitful and maybe, I don't know, a useful contribution basically for the state and also just for the civil society as a whole. So without really wasting much of your time, I'd like to thank you once again for spending, your morning with us today. Siyabonga kakhulu. Nisale kahle.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.